Hi Year 10, this is Mr. Tapley here for your next lesson of Year 10 History. This lesson we are looking at developing our understanding of the main causes of World War II, and we're looking at outlining what those main causes were, and also evaluating how important were they, how significant were they to contributing to starting to causing World War II. So we'll try and rank them in. This is the most important cause of World War II. You will find that a lot of the causes are connected, so it's a difficult question to answer, but we'll do our best. I should also say that this video, these slides, the class activities are designed for a double period. So if you're looking at the video, how many minutes it is, and you're getting a bit stressed, or you're looking at what you have to do this lesson, don't stress because you've got a full double period to complete it, and it's up to you how you go about that. You might watch the video, take a break. You might watch half of the video, do half of the activity, take a break. It's up to you. So what we've got in these slides today is basically I've taken the top 6 causes of World War II, and I've given one slide per cause. And you can see I've got links at the bottom there, just in case I'm not making sense, some extra information, some websites, some very quick videos, and that'll help you with the class activity at the end of these 6 slides. So I'll go through the first one here, which should sound a bit familiar because it's connected to World War I, which you guys studied in Year 9 Humanities. The Treaty of Versailles was a peace treaty. So it was a document that was signed at the end of World War I to formalize peace, to say, all right, war's over, no more. However, despite being a peace treaty, it is often considered the start of World War II, which makes it a pretty terrible peace treaty. The treaty blamed Germany for starting World War I and imposed harsh penalties for their role in the global conflict. So basically, after everyone did all these horrible things in the war, after people were killed other people on each side of the war, Germany was the only one who was really heavily punished, which doesn't really seem fair, does it? Especially if you remember back in Year 9 Humanities, Germany didn't start World War I. Technically, Austria and Serbia had a conflict, and Germany just went and helped out its mates. So it was odd that they were given all of the blame, and it had some very serious consequences, which we'll get to later. But what happened in the penalties was that they lost land, so they lost all their international colonies, they lost the German land, so it just got smaller. The country woke up one day and they're like, oh, I'm on this side of the border, I'm French now, I guess. Demilitarization was another thing that happened as a result of the Treaty of Versailles, which is basically very harsh restrictions on having an army. So they used to have X amount of soldiers and planes and boats. Now they could only have this amount, so very small amounts. The logic there was, well, if they have a small army, they're not going to go to war with us again. That didn't work out, did it? And then the final thing that happened in the Treaty of Versailles worth noting were these reparation payments. So basically Germany got the bill. They shared with everyone the costs of the war. And it was roughly, in modern day equivalents, $57 trillion. Not a great peace treaty if you're charging someone $57 trillion to not go to war. I mean, if you're getting that ridiculous amount of a number, I'd almost be tempted just to go to war again. I'd be like, you know what, I'm going to make my money back by taking it from these guys. So the Treaty of Versailles left Germany bankrupt, humiliated, and furious. And it helped to fuel the rise of the Nazi Party and Adolf Hitler. It was connected to that. You'll see a lot of those connections between different causes. So this led to this led to this called back to this. And again, if you click on those links at the bottom, I've tried to find like a website and a video for each one. So that's the website for the Treaty of Versailles. Quick 2-minute video on how the Treaty of Versailles in World War I was connected to World War II. And that's a naval game you can play. Targeted ads, clearly. So the next cause we're looking at, the Great Depression. So the Great Depression was a severe economic recession, which basically means the economy was going poorly. So you're not making jobs, so you have unemployment, businesses aren't making money, they're being shut down, places are going bankrupt, and everyone and everything and every animal is losing money. Cool. The Great Depression affected the vast majority of the nations around the world between 1929 and 1934. I love this photo on the right here, where you've got these kids that are just playing in the backyard of their house or whatever with like stacks of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollar bills because they were worthless. The money was worthless. That's what happened during the Great Depression. Anyone who had money didn't really have money, and anyone who didn't have money especially didn't have money. So the Great Depression led to a lot of horrible things, obviously. People starved, people had mental health and physical health issues. And the other impact of the Great Depression, which connects to our World War II, was xenophobia. So this hatred of other foreigners. So after the Great Depression, or during the Great Depression, people were struggling to find someone to blame. And they were fearing that other people would come and take their jobs, especially immigrant people, especially people from other countries. So just like in World War I, where we started getting very, very angry with our neighbors, in the lead up to World War II, Great Depression, xenophobia, which is a hard word to pronounce, was increased. So not only was the American populace very concerned about foreigners, people in, let's say, Germany, people who were looking at the Nazi Party and Adolf Hitler for leadership, for guidance, were starting to think badly of their neighbors, of other foreigners. So Germany especially experienced massive unemployment and a rapid decline in the standard of living during this period. They were already struggling to repay the Treaty of Versailles, so this was just another hammer, another nail in the coffin. So these conditions, where everyone was very fearful, very angry, very upset, didn't like foreigners, these conditions enabled extremist groups, like the Nazi Party, to gain popularity. So the fearful people, they were looking for answers, they were looking for someone to blame, looking for someone to say, I know who did this, I'm going to fix this. And they turned to a charismatic and nationalist leader, someone who is very much, our country is great, it's their fault that it's not, we're going to fix this. So you've got that poster down there, which was a German propaganda poster during Hitler's election. And I did German in like year 10, so I can't tell you exactly what it says. I didn't do it very well, mind you. But it's basically saying that Hitler builds us up. Hitler will build the country. He'll get us jobs. He'll get us food, money, water, hats, etc. And again, you've got a couple of resources there to help you out understanding and writing about the Great Depression. Nice little website there. And a quick 1-minute video, allegedly, but it's actually 1:29. False advertising. Moving on, buzzing through these causes. The Nazi Party and Hitler. Adolf Hitler was appointed the leader of the Nazi Party in 1921. So this was a political party trying to get into German government. Didn't like what the other government was doing. They wanted to be in charge because they felt they knew what they wanted to do to make Germany great again. The ideology of the party was built on German nationalism. So this idea that our nation is the best, everyone else sucks. Anti-communism and anti-Semitism. So Hitler decided that the World War I loss and that the Great Depression, all these bad things that were happening, the Treaty of Versailles, he blamed one group of people specifically, and that was the Jewish people. So this anti-Semitism, hatred and discrimination of the Jewish people, was very much a big part of what the Nazi Party was about. In January 1933, the Nazi Party was voted into the government, and Hitler was named German Chancellor, which is kind of like their version of the Prime Minister or the President. And the Nazi government rapidly created laws and policies to control every aspect of German life. So the German government, the Nazi Party, controlled what you did for work. They controlled what you heard in the newspapers, on the radio. They controlled what you wore, literally everything about your life, which meant that they could get you to believe and get you to do a lot of things that most people wouldn't have normally gone along with at the time. We'll get to that later. The government rebelled against the Treaty of Versailles. So Hitler said, you know what, stuff the Treaty of Versailles, stuff those other guys, we're going to rebuild the military. And we're going to lead aggressive expansion into neighboring nations. So he went against the treaty, he rebuilt the military, he said, all that land we give away, I'm going to take it back. And that would all eventually result in the invasion of Poland in September 1939, which started World War II. So Hitler taking power, rebelling against the Treaty of Versailles, led to World War II. And we've got a couple of websites there for you to look at. Nazi Party, so it tells you about where it started, Hitler coming into power, what they did in terms of how they interacted with other nations, their neighbors, and the war. And that's our video, I believe. Oh, no, that's spoilers. That's the next one. Causes of World War II. The policy of appeasement. The term appeasement essentially means giving someone whatever they want to avoid conflict or confrontation. So if you're appeasing someone, you're doing whatever you can to try and make them happy. So, for example, you avoid your little brother having a tantrum, fighting with him. You just say, all right, you take the remote, you watch whatever you want. I don't want to yell at you. or you guys are being crappy in class. I'm like, all right, you can listen to music, just leave me alone. Something like that. So the policy of appeasement was the approach taken by other European nations, mostly Britain and France, because they were the big dogs in the region at the time, during the 1930s when dealing with Adolf Hitler. So they were aware that Hitler was gaining power. They were aware that Hitler was rebuilding the military, but they didn't want to start another war. They thought, well, if we call him out on everything he's doing, he's going to get mad, we're going to do a fight, and we're going to have World War II on our hands. Could you imagine? So you've got some political cartoons on the right here that kind of show that policy of appeasement. So you've got Hitler there, the Nazi Party signal there, and you've got Britain and France over here saying, shh, he'll be quiet now. So they're giving the baby his bottle, if you will. You've got added concessions, military expansionism. Anyway, you've got one down here as well. It's making fun of Mr. Tapley's country, America, saying, oh, fun fact, that's actually drawn by Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss did a lot of political cartoons about World War II. I found that when I was doing research. Anyway, he's saying, relax, America, relax, Uncle Sam. Got the Nazi Party train here. It's going to come towards us and hit us, but it's going to go down another track if we offer appeasement. That was the theory. Obviously, it didn't work. So because of appeasement, in response to Hitler violating the Treaty of Versailles, wasn't even hiding it. He was like, come at me, bro. Creating to maintain peace, he rebuilt the German military. He invaded Austria. He literally went into Austria. He didn't just invade it. He took it. He annexed it. He said, this is now Germany. Deal with it. In 1938, he annexed Austria, and the rest of the world did, drumroll, nothing. In response to Hitler's militaristic expansion, the European leaders did do one thing. They signed the Munich Agreement, which was even less successful than the Treaty of Versailles. It was this little piece of paper that said Hitler promised to stop conquering Europe in exchange for keeping the land Germany had already acquired, which is the stupidest argument I've ever heard. So Hitler went and broke the rules, and the France and British Prime Minister, they said, all right, you can keep what you've done if you don't do it again. And Hitler was like, yeah, sure, yeah, I'll definitely do that, yeah. And obviously he didn't keep his promise. Otherwise we wouldn't be studying World War II. Another bloke that's probably less well known than Adolf Hitler, but just as important in World War II, was Benito Mussolini. And in 1922, the Fascist Party, so we have the Nazis and the Fascists in Italy, the Fascist Party rose to power in Italy. The fascist state in Italy acted as a model for Nazism in Germany. They were kind of BFFs. They were like, oh, that's my hero, I'm going to do what he's doing. So obviously it had a big impact on Hitler, on Nazi Germany, because similar to Hitler, Mussolini placed an emphasis on nationalism. So the country is the most important thing in the world, everyone else sucks, we're going to do something about it. And he placed an emphasis on having total control of the population. Italy had also suffered considerably as a result of the Great Depression. Again, you're seeing these two causes connect to other causes. Mussolini used foreign conquest as a way to gain support from the people. So his logic was, well, we've lost all our stuff, let's go take it from someone else. That's how he was going to make Italy better. So in 1935, he put that to the test. Italy invaded Ethiopia in Africa, which resulted in global outrage. Obviously, after World War I, the rest of the world was very fragile, very sensitive about anyone engaging in any sort of military conflict, because they were like, oh God, it's going to happen again. We don't want it to happen again. However, Mussolini and Italy were supported by one country in particular, Adolf Hitler and Germany. So now you've not only got Hitler to worry about, Hitler's just found his BFF, he's found a mate. So Hitler and Italy are starting to team up, and you're starting to get two sides. Like we saw in World War I, where you had the different sides of countries, the world's being divided, division leads to conflict leads to war. And then there's that video there that I accidentally showed you from earlier. The looming face of fascism, World War II in color. Did I put that wrong link on the side? No, I got the right Nazi Party. Anyway, losing my mind. Final one, final cause. Japan. Similar to Germany and Italy, nationalism and land expansion, or imperialism, so going out and making an empire, imperializing the world, were very popular policies and ideologies in Japan post-World War I. So Japan fought in World War I, they fought on the side of the Allies actually, against Germany, against Italy, and the Treaty of Versailles didn't recognize Japan's claims to land. So after World War I, when everyone sat down for the Treaty of Versailles, different countries were saying, well, we should do this to Germany and I should get this. So Japan said, well, we fought in the war, we deserve this land. The other countries didn't agree. That pissed them off. It led to outrage, and Japan decided, well, if you're not going to give us what we deserve, we're just going to take it. So what they did was they went into Manchuria, which is in northeast China, in 1931, and they seized the city of, I'm going to mispronounce this, Mukden, and claimed the rest of Manchuria. So Japan set up Japan Light in Manchuria. So they took a big part of China, northeast China. They said, this is now part of Japan, basically. This started a year-long conflict that led to the Second Sino-Japanese War from 1937 to 1945 between Japan and China. And that was a very, 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 very brutal war. The Chinese people still have not forgiven the Japanese for what they did during the Second Sino-Japanese War. There's some really brutal atrocities that occurred during that war that I'm not going to go through in this PowerPoint right now. But it was a very violent, very bloody war, which obviously concerned other leaders of the world. Again, we're very sensitive to any sort of war, any sort of conflict. So they're looking over at this going, oh God, it's happening again. So Japan, Germany, and Italy signed the Tripartite Pact in 1940 to assist each other in all military conflicts, which further divided the world order. All of a sudden, we're not just worrying about Hitler, we've got Mussolini in Italy, and now we've got Hirohito, Emperor Hirohito in Japan. So again, we're seeing this division of the world. And again, no one really did anything about what Japan was doing in Manchuria. Again, we see that policy of appeasement. We don't want to start a war, so we're going to let you do your own war, which is a pretty bad argument, if you ask me anyway. And the video I found for Japan was pretty cool, actually. This is like an actual old school video from the 1930s. You can see it's like old-timey newsreel. If you listen to the guy's voice, he's like, it sounds like an actual old-time news guy, as opposed to my silly accent. Anyway. So, we got to the end of it. Well done. Started from the bottom, now we're here. A final slide that I'll be looking at is what we're doing this lesson, our little lesson activity. So you know a little bit about each of those causes now. In the first lesson, the interwars period lesson, you actually looked at one of those in detail. Now I'm hoping we're going to be able to look at all of them to summarize the main causes of World War II. So the activity for today requires you to complete a table of the main causes of World War II, and I'll show you where that is in a moment. Basically, you just need to write a very brief description of the topic, of the cause, the event, whatever you want to call it. So 3 to 4 sentences saying, here's what happened, here's when it happened, where it happened, blah, 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 blah. And then you need to outline how this caused World War II. So, okay, that's what the Great Depression is. Cool. Why should I care? Why is it connected to World War II history? The learning task references the sections of your textbook. So you'll see that I've given you the pages and the chapters in the textbook specifically where you need to go for that information, but you can also use the supporting information in the previous slides. So you can use those videos, you can use those websites that I've provided. Didn't put them there just because they look pretty. I want you to use that information to help you complete these activities. The final question, and again I'll show you this in a moment, asks you to determine, all right, you got 6 here, what's your favorite? Which cause was the most significant in starting World War II? So those are the class slides. If we go back to Google Classroom, you'll see SEM 2 Learning Task Causes of World War II. You just need to click on that Google Doc there. It's an individual file for each student. You don't need to make a new one. You don't need to edit it. You just need to fill in the table. And then press Submit or Hand in on the top right. As you can see, we've got the causes on the left here. So the Treaty of Versailles, which is in Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. Great Depression, Chapter 2. Rise of Nazis. Appeasement. Fascism and militarism. Fascism, I couldn't actually find a lot of information that was useful in the textbook, so I've just added a second website that you can use there. So those are the causes, and then you've got 2 boxes here. So one box, what happened, so 2, 3, 4 sentences about what happened. Box over here, how did this cause World War II? So that's probably 2 sentences again in there, and you've got the full double period to smash this out, so you've got plenty of time. And then the final question at the bottom is asking, what do you believe was the most significant cause of World War II, and also why? So 3 or 4 sentences. So I believe the most significant cause was blah, and then you tell me why you feel that way. So that's what you're smashing out this lesson, guys. Whew, out of breath. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll try and set up one of those self-care catch-up lessons either at the end of this week or the start of next week to help people complete this learning task, in case I've already fallen behind in the first week, which would be concerning, but understandable. It's stressful, it's anxious. I'm going to put my mask back on in a minute. I can't breathe in it. I look silly. My glasses are fogging up. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is, I hope you're well. Best of luck. Cheers.